Hey everyone, welcome back to the Black Carnivore live stream. So I'm really excited to have this Q&A tonight. I know, I'm getting a lot of questions from people about, how carnivore works and, kind of a lot of basic questions. And there are things that people are doing wrong that, can really make the carnivore journey harder. And so I want to kind of touch base on some of those things and make sure that your, carnivore journey can be as smooth and easy as possible. This way of eating isn't that complicated, or it shouldn't be that complicated. But sometimes it is based off of, I feel like there's a lot of, information that is put out there that can be confusing and misleading. And so, it's important to kind of clear that stuff up. And frankly, this way of eating is, it is super easy. It shouldn't be that hard. It's not that complicated. Our ancestors ate like this for hundreds of thousands of years, so it shouldn't be it shouldn't be that complicated. So let's just dive into some of this stuff. Let's see who's here. Anna, hey, welcome. And actually, before I begin, can you just put something in the chat? Can you hear me? Is the sound okay? Because I kind of have a different sound setup now, so let me know. Okay, hey Anna, good to see you. Hi, Heather. Good to see you. And Valerie, great to see you here. So just let me know if you can hear me okay. Okay. So, I put a comment in, in my stories today. So, asking if anybody had any questions. And actually, let me just check to see if there were any last minute additions. Let's see. So, there was a question about weight loss and went with the last 10 pounds. So we can start there, or we can start with some other questions. Okay, great. You can all hear me. Yeah, Valerie says not complicated except in our minds, but takes time for change. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, good afternoon, carnivores. Good afternoon, Glenda. Good to see you. Okay, so, oh my gosh, who is at my door? Oh my God. I am gonna just have to, crap, I think I'm expecting a package. Um, I'm just gonna have to let that one go. Uh, Yikes. Okay, hold on a second. Sorry, guys. So sorry. Hello, come in. Okay, so sorry, everybody. I was waiting for a package all day, so do apologize about that. So sorry. Okay, so let's dive right in. Um, so the number one thing that I think people really have trouble with is making sure that they're getting enough fat on the carnivore diet. So, I think that in former times, this wouldn't really have been a problem. But it's just that over the last 50 years, we have been taught that fat is bad, and so we have this habit of just like trying to eat as little fat as possible. I think we've also sort of been divorced from what fat actually is. And, fat is not, natural fat is not what comes in a bottle. It's not it's not butter. It is the actual, fat that is attached to the piece of meat that's on your plate. So, I really do promote eating a natural diet. Eating unprocessed natural foods, and so that means eating, actual fat that's not been rendered or processed into something that goes into a bottle. So, it's not that I think that butter is bad, but it is processed, So if you're trying to eat as, as naturally as possible with as little processing as possible, you want to try to make that kind of fat the basis of your meals. And thanks, Erica. I appreciate your letting me get that package. And oh my God, it's so hot in my apartment right now. I don't know why. Hey, Leonard, welcome. I didn't have heat all the last 2 weeks, so it has been like a whole big thing to get the boiler working again. And so now that I have heat, I don't want to complain, but it is quite hot in my apartment. Okay, so, but yeah, you want to get as fatty a meat as possible. And Valerie, I see you say fatty steaks, and that's awesome. Um, but fatty steaks is not, it's not the only place. You can also there are fattier cuts of meat on the animal that is that's beside steaks, and not everybody can afford or wants to do steaks all the time. I totally get that. So I do encourage you to figure out how to get the brisket, the chuck, the oxtails, the uh, what do I always say? Oh, the ribs, any portion of the ribs. That's really where you're going to find, this fatty, the fatty cuts and the fattiest meat possible. And the bone marrow, oh, of course. So that is an incredibly nutritious organ meat, and it's fat. So, so look for these different cuts. Look for different ways to get fatty cuts of meat in. And I know that it's popular to do like a protein sparing modified fast. And so, people are looking at eating the leaner cuts and really increasing the amount of protein they have. And some people do quite well with that. So that's not to say don't do that. But I think it's better to start with the fatty cuts of meat, get yourself not only into ketosis, but fat adapted. And getting fat adapted, oh, I don't know what's going on today. And getting fat adapted really, that requires time in ketosis. Basically, what you're trying to do is get your body to the point where it is good at burning fat. And so, it's not. In the beginning, when you get yourself into ketosis, you are, that can happen pretty quickly. But getting really good at burning fat that takes time, and so you want to let that process happen, and then you can start experimenting with things like fasting or protein sparing modified fasts or other types of things. So that's one thing that I see as a big challenge for people who are, jumping into this and trying to do too many things. And I think when you're not fat adapted and you try to restrict how much fat you're having or restrict, how much food you're having in total, that can lead to a binge because you're just hungry and you don't have enough energy. So that's something to pay attention to. Let's see. And I see Anna says one of my favorites is brisket, slow cooked, and eat all the juice. Throw in some heart, and you have an awesome meal. Absolutely. Wendy says butcher shop for fat suet organs of all kinds and marrow bones, much cheaper than regular meat. Absolutely, totally agree. And that's another thing too. I mean, I do tell people to try to get, beef fat trimmings. And it's a bit of an art to get that. You have to you have to find a willing butcher. You got to go to an actual butcher. It's not going to be it's generally not, like prepackaged and available at the grocery store. So you have to put a little effort into that. But, another option is to get suet. I don't really like suet, but lots of people do. So, suet is another option to go. And there are people who like to eat it. They, cut it into slices and put it in the freezer, and they like to eat it frozen, like the individual slices frozen. I don't like that, but there are a lot of people that do like that. So I would say, try both and see how and see how it goes, and then make a decision about what you would, how you want to proceed with it. But I think, both of those are great options. Okay, Jimmy ZC says started at 547 pounds, been doing carnivore since January 6th, 2020, finally reached 200 pounds, lost as of Monday. Wow. All right. Bravo, Jimmy. I love it. That is so amazing. So you say, I really wish I knew about this years ago. Should I ease up on some of the fattier should I ease up on some of the fattier cuts in high 8A? Um, I don't, well, it sounds like what you're doing is working, so don't change anything. Just keep going. I definitely think that if you have found a rhythm and things are working, like leave it alone. When it stops working, and then you can kind of give it some thought, but leave it alone. Okay, Leonard says the meat counter at my local Piggly Wiggly saves all the trimmed beef fat for me. I go every week or so and get about 10 pounds for 10 bucks. They were throwing it away. Yes, awesome. I love that. That's exactly what you should be doing. And, basically you find one of the butchers, they will, pay attention to you, and they will like save it for you. You just have to talk to them. They will think you're crazy. They will be confused by what you're asking. And they will, they'll think it's weird, but eventually you'll get somebody who, understands what you're asking, and they'll do it. Um, okay, Jimmy is asking about what he corrected his sentence there. Okay, see, let's see. Tova says, can a good homemade beef bone broth is so good, but is it enough to count as a meal? So bone broth alone is certainly not enough to count as a meal. You need actual meat and whatnot, but I would think that bone broth would not be enough to keep you satisfied. But I mean, it's certainly a good beverage. There were people who substitute coffee in the morning with bone broth. So if that's what you want or need to do, then yeah, I would, go ahead and do that. But it's not enough. It's not, actually enough for food or a meal. Let's see. Latricia says, can you cook bone marrow from frozen, or should you let it thaw out? Uh, I've I've actually cooked it from frozen, so I think that should be fine. And maybe it takes a little longer to cook all the way through, but it should be fine. Hey everyone, hey Ashley, it's good to see you. And Still I Rise says, congratulations to Jimmy. Yeah, I think Jimmy deserves a lot of congratulations. Has done a tremendous job, so good for you. Okay, so let's see. The question that I had gotten on Instagram was about struggling to lose the last 10 pounds, and yeah, that is a tough one. It can often take as long to lose the last 10 as it took to lose, the first 100, and that one is a challenge. For the most part, I mean, in the beginning when people are getting started, you don't really need to pay a lot of attention to calories or, how much you're eating, because, the changes that are happening and the healing that's going on is, enough to, to really start losing weight and to maintain weight loss. But as you get closer, to your final goal, you may need to be, very mindful about your portion size and about, how many calories overall you're eating. So you might look at what you're having and see if there are any places where, you're eating extra that, can be cut. Like, are you having bulletproof coffee? Are you adding, butter or, some kind of fat to your meal? Is there something that you can cut out? And that might be a help. And you might also consider fasting. Can you cut out 1 or 2 meals a week, and just fast through them? So I would think about that. So let me know how that works out for you. And let's see, who was that who asked me? uh, I think it was Tam Tammy to Teach. So Tammy to Teach, if you're watching, that would be my suggestion to you. Okay, so let's see. Wendy Barb says, get the bone marrow hot and stir in a couple of eggs, makes for a nutritious meal. Yeah, that sounds delicious. And I think I think that's how they make. You can make a very creamy kind of um, soup or sauce that way. And I think, and that's what I recommended in. So I have a recipe for making kind of like a Swedish meatballs, kind of like a a kind of a thick sauce to go on top of the meatballs. And so, yeah, adding eggs can make it nice and creamy. And also, there are people who add an egg yolk to their coffee and, and use an immersion blender to blend it up. And instead of adding butter, and that gets it, very creamy and thick and delicious and frothy without all of the, without as much fat as you might get from butter or heavy whipping cream. So that's something else to try if you really need to have something other than black coffee. So that's something to think about. Okay, let's see. Anna says, our bodies like to set a weight for us. Is it 10 pounds to an ideal weight on a chart? My doctor says often we aim for 10 pounds less than our bodies would find ideal. Yeah, I mean, that certainly is possible. I don't know what this person looks like. They could be, they could be attached to a number on a scale that doesn't really reflect their body. A lot of times the other thing that can happen with carnivore is that, you get more muscular, you get stronger, and so you might look like you weigh 10 pounds less, but you're really actually heavier because you're not only, more muscular, but, maybe have denser bones and, more stronger, tendons and ligaments and denser organs and all of that stuff, all that stuff weighs something. So you could be heavier, but look the way that you want to look. So that's something to think about too. I really do try to get people to kind of move away from the scale on carnivore because the scale doesn't, it doesn't really accurately reflect what's happening when you're following a carnivore diet. I mean, when you're following a regular diet where you're just counting calories and you're eating, high carb, um, the scale, the scale is the way that people measure what's happening. But on a carnivore diet, so much is happening that doesn't show up on the scale. So, it's really not the best way to measure. And in fact, so we've done now two challenges, and they've gone really, really well. It's been exciting to watch the people in the challenge and the way their bodies are changing. There's just, in 3 weeks' time, it's really amazing what can happen. And a lot of people do lose about 10 pounds, which is really impressive for 3 weeks. But it's also really impressive to see like the how much change happens in the body. How much the stomach flattens out. How much the face slims out, and how bright people's eyes get and their skin gets. So there's a lot of change that can happen in just a few weeks' time. So if you're thinking about trying the carnivore diet, or you need some help to stay on it and to keep going, make sure you sign up for my January challenge. And I'm gonna put the link in the description of this video, but you definitely want to join in. And for the January challenge, I'm actually going to start it a little late because the first is that's it's just too hard to start anything on the actual first. And then the first Monday is the 3rd of January. But I think a lot of people are not quite going to be ready to start then. So I'm going to start at January 10th, but have a prep week where the group is open. So you can get in and get started and get acclimated, but we'll really start on January 10th. So I recommend you all do that. Okay, so anybody have any more questions about carnivore? The other things that I wanted to share that I think is important for people is making sure that you actually get the electrolytes right. So, it's kind of hard because I know we all want to um, have like, a specific number, like, take this many teaspoons or this much, this many milligrams of sodium. And, that really doesn't work. Like, our bodies are very different. What you're doing every day is different. Where you live is different. Like the moisture in the air is different. All of these things are different, and so you kind of have to find the right amount for you. But if you're not getting the right amount, it can really make the whole process very uncomfortable. And fatigue is very common. Um, Feeling a lot of cravings is very common if you're not getting the electrolytes right. And then, of course, stuff like leg cramps at night, like that can happen. And all of this stuff is fixable, but you just have to make sure that you are, or preventable for that matter. But you just have to make sure you're making the effort to salt your food enough, and you want to go further than you think you need to. So push the amount of salt that you put on your food, make it almost to the point where it's unpalatable, but just before that. And and that should keep you that should keep you comfortable, or that should keep you properly, keep your electrolytes in the proper place. Okay, let's see. Um, So Anna says, hi, any tips to get back on track after some seriously bad days of eating sugar? Sugar addict here, 100% carnivore for 5 months, and then a quote unquote innocent strawberry dessert messed it up. Help. Yeah, those innocent desserts, or little bites, can really knock us off track. So it's interesting. It's interesting that you describe yourself as a sugar addict. I think that many of us are, and that's why carnivore can be so helpful for some of us, because it takes out all of the sweet tastes, all of the sweet things, all sweeteners, and that allows us to have a level of freedom and abstinence that we may never have experienced before, because sugar is so ubiquitous in all the foods that we eat. And then, you go for several months like that, and then you have just a little bit thinking it's not a big deal, and it like spirals out of control, and it may take you weeks to get back on track. So I totally get that experience. Ideally, staying on track is the best thing to do. And, but like things happen, of course. So I kind of think the best way to get back on track is just to pick out your favorite carnivore foods and prepare them for the next couple of days, so that every meal that you like, or every meal that you're going to have, you like the food and you're looking forward to eating it. So, and even get some of the special foods. I mean, maybe you get a ribeye if you don't normally eat that, or maybe you get shrimp if you don't normally eat that, but do something that's like special that you really like. And then you just got to stick with it and get through. And you're probably going to go through carb withdrawals. And, and for, um, and just expect to not feel great. And, that feeling of withdrawal, you might have the image of, like, someone struggling with drugs and like shaking and, like totally sick and out of it in the corner. And so that's not exactly what, withdrawal from sugar looks like, but it might be that you're irritable, you have a short fuse, you're tired, your mood feels very volatile, things upset you more, and it's hard for you to focus. Like, that's commonly what you might see with sugar withdrawal. And but know that only, that doesn't last that long. So if you can get a good solid 2 weeks of being on track, you'll be through all of those feelings and they will go away. So, I suggest that you get yourself back on track and get a support group. Like, dealing with this stuff is a lot easier when you're with other people who get it, and who are going through the same thing. So, I definitely suggest that well, join the challenge in January. That's certainly something you can do. But stay in touch with with this community and with the other people on social media who are following this way of eating. It is hard, especially we live in a world full of sugar where people are expected to eat sugar all the time. So if you're not going to, you really need to have that support and have that community from somewhere. And Vanessa asked, do I work with people who have a hard time losing weight due to hormonal imbalances? So, I'm not, a trained like functional medicine doctor or something like that. So, I'm not going to be able to give you that kind of support if there is, something significant going on like that. If you feel like you have hormonal imbalances, you probably want to work with someone who's like a functional um, medical doctor who can, do all the tests and kind of figure out what is really going on. But, I do work with people who just need, help with sticking to this. And frankly, I think I'm working a lot with sugar addicts, and I am a sugar addict myself, and I know what that feels like. And, and sticking with this can be really hard. But I do think that once you stick with this and you get further along, you can have a lot of success, and a lot of the things that are wrong with us kind of start to get sorted out. Now, that's not to say some people do have there's like multiple layers of things that are going on, and so carnivore can fix a lot of it, but there's still maybe other things that need to be fixed. So so that's something to consider. And how do you succeed on a carnivore diet while working night shift as a nurse? Wow, that's a hard one. Yeah. Definitely working night shift itself alone is a problem because, of course, it messes up, your circadian rhythms, and, we're supposed to be asleep at night and not up all night. So, people who work the third shift always, have more of a challenge. But certainly eating a carnivore diet is a better way to, that's certainly going to help you deal with the repercussions of working the night shift. So, what I used to tell people, I worked with people who who are nurses and who or, are working jobs where they don't really have a lunch break or a lot of breaks and there's a lot of food around. So what I suggested to do is kind of like whatever food you have, like figure out how you can like break it up into bite-sized pieces and like put it on a toothpick. And so they would, every time they like walked around their desk or their area, they were able to grab a toothpick or two of a bite of steak or whatever it was. And that way they were able to get something to eat, because otherwise they would be too tempted to grab the cookie or the other stuff that's always there. And, it was always surprising to me, like how much junk food, is there at the nurse's station. So I felt bad, for, I always you want to give something to the nurses who are working, when you have someone who's very ill and who's in the hospital for a long time. But, finding something to give that's not food is, I think, probably a better idea, healthier and helpful for them. Okay, so Wendy says, night shift lab rat here. Number one tip for me is never eat the junk in the cafeteria. Always take your food unless you have a better setup than we do. Yeah, well, definitely. Always bring your own food in general. I think one of the things, as a carnivore, people often, I think a lot of people don't like to cook, and I just don't think that there's a way to regularly eat out and be, and have enough control over your food that you are able to, make progress on your health. I think it's fine, sometimes to order patties from McDonald's or, to order out from restaurants or go out for steak. But it, every single restaurant uses soybean oil to cook everything. So, unless it specifically says like this is grilled, you just have to assume that you're getting seed oils, which is going to be a problem, all by itself. And then, restaurants mostly, they want to make food that you like, and people like sugar. And so, like, there's always sugar in everything, and there's hidden sauces, hidden marinades, and hidden sugar in stuff. So I think it's just really hard to be sure that you are getting, sugar-free food that doesn't have a lot of soy or seed oils in it. So I feel like it would be hard to eat out a lot and regularly this way. So if you can figure out how to, um, you know, make lunch, or make your meals and bring them with you, like that's going to serve you so well on this way of eating. So I really do encourage you to try to do that. um, okay, so what temperature and how long to oven cook bake a top round roast, 3 pounds of chuck roast, wrap in foil? um, Great question. So I would cook, if you're getting top round, that is a leaner cut of meat, and I would cook that very differently than I would cook chuck roast. So, a top round, I would cook low, like at 170 degrees for a very long time. Depending on how, well, if it's 3 pounds, I guess that would be, I want to say like 3 hours at 170 degrees, and you want to use a thermometer just to check the temperature, but to make sure you've at least reached, I think, like 135 degrees. That's what I prefer. A chuck roast has more fat in it and also more collagen, so it can be cooked at a higher temperature. But you might also do that in, well, I guess you would do it in maybe at 350, and I would not cover that. I would leave it uncovered, and roast it in the oven as well. So no foil. But anybody else in the chat, please give your suggestions, because I don't know everything about cooking. um, let's see. Nurses are some of the worst sugar addicts. Donuts and cookies everywhere. Yeah, that's a problem. Um, and Mandel says, have you dealt with sugar addicts who are self-medicating with sugar for psychological treatment? Yeah, I mean, that's what we're all doing. We're kind of dealing with life with sugar. Some people are dealing with depression and anxiety with sugar, and the fact is that the sugar actually adds to or creates the anxiety and the depression. So it's like the very drug that you're using to deal with these problems is actually causing the problems, and that's what's so ironic and sad. So yeah, we're all doing that. And and so that's not to say that we don't have real psychological, problems or issues or mental illness or whatever. But there's also this additional layer of this drug addiction on top of it. So if you can remove the drug and get off of it, then you can start to deal with the other stuff that's going on underneath. And, talk therapy and CBT and all of these other things that people like to use, those things can be more effective when your mind is not hijacked by the drug. So, so that's why, it's so important to actually pull out the sugar and the grains from the diet. And I do think, like, carnivore is particularly effective for doing that. But, a lot of people are just not ready or willing to give up the sweet stuff. And so, people are still including stevia and artificial sweeteners in their carnivore diet. And some people can handle it and it's fine and it doesn't, trigger cravings, but other people really do have a problem with it. And, one person I'm working with recently has really improved. and her and being able to stay on the program for a longer period of time and being able to stick with it and not have cheats. And but Bahan asking more questions, it became clear that she really stopped having the artificial sweeteners, and that was kind of what the problem was. And that is what kind of keeps that craving and that urge for sugar alive, and the cravings lead to falling off track. And so when you take it all out completely, I think that people have a lot more success. So I would consider that if you feel like you're having a hard time staying on track or you have cheats, like it may be that sweet is not for you. So think about that. Um, okay, beef, butter, black coffee, and black tea. Night shift. Going to need to have a bowl of beef and butter and good coffee. Good brand of black tea. Twinning Earl Grey. Sounds good. Sounds like a plan. Um, okay, B. Alexander has asked how young I am. So I am 50. And yeah, and feeling better at 50 than certainly than I did at 30, I gotta say. Um, Meat-based musing says I medicate with sugar if I'm not careful, caffeine too. Yeah. Yep. So that is definitely a thing. And lately I've been listening I've been I after that interview I did with Bitten Johnson, I have really been looking a lot more at food addiction and what it is and what it isn't and what the treatments are and what the latest research on it is. And there's a lot of information like I didn't know, and it's really been eye-opening for me. And like I've said, and I've talked about this before, like I want to see if I can somehow provide more information and more support, because I do think the people who are attracted to carnivore are also the people who are recognizing that their lifelong struggle with food and with weight and with health, and with sugar is, they're ready to end that struggle, and they're ready to look for another way. And I think that a lot of us realize that sugar and grains is like a massive problem, not just a small problem for us. So I think that for people in this community who are really struggling with sugar, I would like to try to provide a community where we can deal with that directly. But not everybody is a sugar addict. So so I don't want you to feel like uh, everybody has this problem. Not everybody does. So there's probably half the people in the carnivore community are sugar addicts, but the other half are not. So if that's not you, that's okay. You can it's okay. Let's see. Giacomo says, I'm not really a sugar addict, but I'm a salt addict. Chips, popcorn, pistachios, cheese puffs are my weakness. So I think you would be surprised to discover you are a sugar addict, because all of those things are sugar. It's just in a different format. There are sugar addicts who like love Jolly Ranchers and donuts and chocolate and ice cream, but there's also the sugar addict who loves bread and pretzels and pasta and that sort of thing. So just because your sugar doesn't come in like the traditional package that we think of as sugar doesn't mean that you're not struggling with the same thing. So that doesn't really that so to me that doesn't sound like a salt problem. That sounds like a sugar problem, because if you look at chips and popcorn, I mean, it's straight up carbs, a lot of them. And it breaks down into sugar pretty quickly. Okay, so Island Girl says, hi, 50. Wow, thank you so much, I really appreciate that. And Mr. Bogglesworth, thank you so much for the super chat. That really means a lot. Like all of you, I really appreciate all the support you've given to this channel and to me. I'm really trying to bring this message and provide a space for everybody who who has tried to make a change in their health and realizes that the diet culture, the weighing and measuring, the counting the calories and all of that, for those of you who recognize that that doesn't work for you, and you're looking for another way, I have tried to create this community for us so that we so that we can support one another. And then so I'm happy to do that, and I love it when you guys support me, so thank you so much. um, let's see, Mandel says, suggestion for when cooking time was forfeited by work schedule and obligations to get the fat and meat, no pork. Um, yeah, then I think that yeah, it can be hard to cook some of these things that take a long time to cook. Using a pressure cooker is definitely a time saver, so something to think about. Tova says you look great. You could pass for 20s or 30s. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and I hope to stay young looking as long as, or young feeling as long as possible. That's what really matters, right? And Termel says I have to give up the Lay's potato. I had to give up the Lay's potato chips. Yeah, absolutely. So potato chips, we might think, you might think of as a salty thing, but it's just a carby thing with salt on it. So, meat-based musings asks, do you think we're messing with bliss points in carnivore, adding fat and salt to food? I don't think so. Bliss points. For those of you who might not be aware, um, there, well, I guess the food and snack industry, I mean, they spend millions of dollars. They have, scientists whose like sole focus is to figure out exactly how to formulate a food so that, it triggers in us this desire to keep eating and to keep eating and to love the food that we're eating. So, and so they pursue the bliss point, which is the perfect, I don't know, the perfect flavor that just makes you love the food. So I mean, a lot of work goes into creating that product, and it I think that what they're trying to do is exceed what natural food does. So food is supposed to be good, and we're supposed to get joy from it, so that that gives you that desire to eat and make sure that you don't starve to death. um, so it should be enjoyable, but hitting that bliss point which you're describing is something beyond. I think there were, I forget where I read about this. Maybe it was in that book Food Junkies, but they were talking about how you know dopamine is kind of that thing that creates the craving for something, and so your body, um, well, not to get too deep into it, but certain activities release a certain amount of dopamine, and then there are other things that release a huge amount of dopamine, which means that it creates an impression in your body. So, like, let's say you eat lunch and you get 50 units hit of dopamine. If you like have a fun conversation with a friend and you laugh a lot, maybe you get 100 units of dopamine. So that is a pleasurable and enjoyable activity. And then let's say you do a line of coke in the afternoon and that hits you 1,000 units of dopamine. And so you can see where you may end up being less interested in the normal daily activities because this other drug is giving you a much higher hit. And so with these processed foods, what they're designed to do is give you a much higher hit. And so and so regular food sort of loses its interest to you because it doesn't hit you in the same way. And so I can't see, you know, salt on a ribeye ever getting you to a point where a chocolate lava cake is. It just doesn't hit you in the same way. And so what you want to do is like remove those high hitting things so that your brain can reset and again take pleasure in the things that give you smaller bumps of dopamine or more normal levels of dopamine, if that makes sense. Um, okay. And Trammell says, "Is it a problem that I only eat once a day?" I don't think so. A lot of people eat once a day. The only time it's a problem, I mean, if you're actively trying to lose weight, sometimes it can be a problem if you are regularly not eating enough food. But if you are at the weight you want to be and you're eating once a day and you feel good, you have enough energy, then there's no problem with that. Um, And let's see, Meat Based Musing says, I asked about the salt because a YouTuber who doesn't use salt says she tried to eat salt for a week and noticed she ate more. I wondered if there was a connection. Salt does, make food taste better. So yeah, you will probably eat a little more. Um, but I don't think, but it's never gonna get you to the point where like, you might be if you were eating some kind of delicious gooey dessert option. Um, but there are certainly, carnivores, a set of carnivores who don't eat any salt at all. And that is a possibility. Some people do well with that and other people don't. So if you are doing well on your carnivore diet with salt and you like it, like there's no need to change. But if you're interested in giving it a try and seeing how you feel, there's no reason not to do that. Um, but I like salt on food, and I did, probably my first 2 weeks of doing carnivore, I did it with no salt. And at first it was like, oh God, everything is so bland. And then after a couple of days, my mouth reset, and then it was like, oh, this is fine, it tastes good. So, you could give it a try, see how you feel about it. Uh, let's see, Ebony, it's great to see you. Hey, it's good to, I hope, I'm glad to see you here. Okay, let's see. Why can you eat more meat if carbs are included? It's more stuff plus meat. I see it working, but it doesn't make sense. Yeah, I think it has more to do with the hormones and how it impacts your hormones than the actual volume that it takes up. Um, yeah. So, and then there's also no off switch for carbs. So, you can imagine after you eat a big meal, like, and then the dessert tray comes around, there's still room for dessert because it's a different flavor, it's something different, and also like there's just no off switch, there's no part, of your physiology that, kind of sends a signal we don't want anymore. But you do get that off switch for protein and for fat. So there you go. GMO says salt does make food more palatable, so you may want to eat more. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that much more salt is going to make you eat that much more that it's unhealthy or gonna like halt your weight loss goals or whatever your goals are. I mean, there's also a set of people who eat raw carnivore because well, they believe that by cooking meat you're losing nutrients and that it's just a better way to do it, and that you're also not going to eat any extra because eating raw is, I mean, it's good until you're not hungry anymore, and then you're not going to get any of that. um you're not going to get any of those signals to overeat because things taste good. uh so I don't know. I mean, I think that if you feel like you need to take it that far, you can try that. Um, but I think I haven't really seen salt, so much trigger somebody to eat that they would eat to the point of like gaining weight or something. So I wouldn't worry about that. Um, yeah, so let's see, meat-based musings. I love salt. I wouldn't want to give it up. Just curious. Yeah, so I don't know. It's always it's good to, experiment though, see how things are. Try it. I did try raw carnivore, and I would say raw meat it does taste fine. I was surprised. I thought that I would not like it, but it was actually fine. Uh, it kind of has a mild taste, and it was pretty good. But I didn't want to, I would say that I don't really want to do all the things that are necessary to make sure that the meat is safe to eat. So that's something to consider. If you don't feel like you want to do all those things, then I wouldn't make that a regular part of your daily thing. The broken prophet says that's my problem. No off switch for carbs. That's right. No off switch. You have to artificially, restrict yourself by counting calories, or, counting, like, how much of the thing that you're eating. But there's no other way to let your body naturally turn it, give you an off signal. Okay, Mandel says, what's suitable for raw? When cooking time is an issue, do the raw people use salt? Um, so, you can eat anything raw. How to do it safely? I'm not a chef, but that would be a question I think that you would want to ask, a chef. But basically, when you have a piece of meat, what's inside is sterile, but what's outside has been exposed, and so there's bacteria or whatnot on it. Every time you cut into the meat, you're introducing bacteria. So if you have a chunk of meat, if you cook the outside, and then you have a clean sterile knife and a clean sterile cutting surface, you cut off the part that's cooked, everything inside is safe. But I just, I don't really want to do all of that. And I don't, and there's like special things you're supposed to do in a professional kitchen to sterilize the knife and sterilize the cutting board. I'm not doing all that. Um, so there you go. If cooking time is an issue, there are definitely, I know people who like really um, rare steaks. And so what you can do is like take your steak and cook it, from frozen in the air fryer, and the outside will be completely cooked and then the inside will be completely raw. So that's an option, and that's certainly faster. And raw people, some of the raw people don't use salt and some do. So, I that's a thought, but that's a subset of the carnivore community. But cooking is fine. I wouldn't I wouldn't feel like you have to do raw. So let's see. GMO says in the wild, the mixture of fat, carbs, and protein together, especially if it's sweet at all, is extremely rare. So the brain says, jackpot, eat as much of this as you can and keep going. Yeah, I would totally agree. Sweet is generally, that's not a common thing. But, I actually, in looking at, I kind of think that being insulin resistant is, it's kind of like in former times, that was like a plus, in our current environment where food is, ubiquitous, it's easy to get, we don't have to work hard for it at all. Like, this is an unnatural environment, for most of human existence. You have to put some work in to get your food. So, that itself is a limiting factor. But we don't have that anymore. So in times past, it was, the people who survived are the ones who could more easily get fat, store fat, and, have that fat for time when times were lean, or when they had to do a tremendous amount of work to acquire that food. So, being insulin resistant is probably, something that helped us to survive. And it only now is it killing us when we have this weird thing going on where, we're allowing, well, essentially capitalism and people who are looking to make money off of our illness and our sickness. So there you go. Broken profit. I don't know what the blue joke is. I can only imagine. Okay, Jeffrey says, I've got chronic neck pain. I'm hoping carnivore helps. I've been going 2 months and feel a little better. Well, I'm glad you're starting to feel better. Not sure, well, I mean, it's not really, since we don't know what the neck pain is, not sure, what would help necessarily, but certainly anything that can help reduce inflammation can be helpful. So, I would love to hear a little bit more about what you're eating and what you've kind of noticed in terms of non-scale victories throughout your body or any other healing that you might have noticed. It'll, carnivore it does take a while, and and people do start to notice a lot of healing, in the very beginning, but that how how much healing you have can go on for months. Like you can notice improvements for 6 months, a year. Some things take longer. So, so stick with it. Um, Tova says, I nod off every day after my good carnivore meal, just like I did after I ate sad, but it feels different. I don't feel bad after a carnivore nod. Could this be an energy issue? Um, I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, I think that eating is, I mean, it feels good, it's comforting, and I don't know that there's anything necessarily bad about nodding off after you eat. Uh, so yeah, I would have to hear more about that, but I don't know if that's bad. If you're nodding off through the day and you feel like you're not, you don't really have energy, that's a different question and definitely something worth pursuing. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to nod off a bit after eating a good meal. Um, oh, all right, I get the joke now. Good, good. And a broken prophet, well, I was gonna point out that, we touched base earlier, and, I encourage you all to check out the interview that I did with him a while back. You can go on the YouTube channel and find that interview. But one of the things that I thought was interesting, I had watched him. He's another YouTuber and has a great channel, so you should go all check that out, The Broken Prophet. But in watching him, I would be able to hear him wheeze, like his asthma was very bad, and that concerned me. Like you see someone having trouble breathing. I know what that's like, as I have asthma too, and I just was like waiting for an opportunity to to suggest, hey, try something different. And then I do remember him reaching out to his community and asking about doing a vegan diet and how to do it best. And then, I since he was asking for advice on how to lose weight and get healthier, I was like, well, let me take my shot. And so I was so happy that he decided to give carnivore a try and really took to it. I mean, just immediately, took to it. It worked really well. He, lost a ton of weight, but more importantly, lost the asthma. So when he's not eating dairy, he can breathe. You can't hear any more of that wheezing, and it's amazing. So, for all of you who are watching now, if you have any kind of autoimmune disease, carnivore is just amazing. And if you take out that dairy, you will see just unbelievable changes. And, it's not just asthma. I mean, it can be acne, it can be IBS, it can be, it really manifests itself in all kinds of ways. So, it's really worth doing and really worth trying to go all the way and really see how you respond. So, yeah, so Broken Prophet says it worked. So I'm glad that you were willing to share your story, and you put it out there, and he has figured out how to eat this way and feel good about it, and his friends and family just are, I assume, happy about his health improvements, and so hopefully he's encouraging other people to give this way of eating a try. And yeah, very happy about that. Okay. So, yeah, GMO says it takes a lot of energy to break down protein, plus blood flow is directed to the digestive system now that it's reawoken. Yeah, that could be it. Certainly. So, I don't know. I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it just yet. So, all right. Any other questions? Anybody else have any other questions about carnivore? Um, so I encourage you all to think about trying the Carnivore Challenge, doing it in January. It is, a great community. You get a lot of support. And certainly through the holiday, I'm really glad that I did this through the holiday season, because I know how easy it is for people to kind of get knocked off track by Halloween and then just say, oh, the heck with it. I'll wait until January to get started again, and gain a ton of weight during the holiday season. So, this challenge has helped a lot of people to at least maintain their weight, if not lose 10 pounds or 20 pounds even during this whole holiday season. And so that could be you. You could, get started in January, do January, February, March, and, by summertime, you could be, way far ahead of, where you expect to be. And it's so hard to do things alone. It's so much easier to do things in community. So I encourage you to, to connect with people, stay connected with me, get connected with other people, actually, get support. Because so many of our families and friends are just like, just don't understand. And I gotta say, like, I went, to visit family for this past week, and I feel like I've talked about with my family that I have this channel, this community. I feel like I talk about what I do, yet I still have people asking me if I have if I eat vegan. Like, they got that like, when I do want to say that I was surprised at how easy it ended up being for me to stay on track when I was in Michigan, and to not even get tempted. I just basically went to the grocery store and always got something and brought it with me. And so I think that my family knew that I did some kind of health thing. So they were not surprised that I brought my own food, but I don't think they understood that, I eat meat, So they were kind of like, oh, no salad? And it was just like, I don't really know what I have to say to make it clear. I'm a carnivore. But in any event, they really didn't give me too much of a hard time. I brought enough food to share, so people, I think, felt okay. They felt okay about my um, cooking my own food and not really eating. My one cousin, he made a deep fried turkey for Thanksgiving. And so at first, I was kind of like, oh man, I've never had I've only had fried turkey once and it wasn't that good, but I'm, interested in trying it. And, and then as I was eating a piece of it, I kind of realized I could smell the oil that it was deep fried in, which of course was vegetable oil. So, and it had that smell of vegetable oil, which I feel like I've forgotten what that smell actually smells like. Um, I haven't eaten that kind of food in a long time, and it was like the smell was definitely it's a very particular smell. And I was like, oh yeah. Like, I'm so glad that I brought something because if I were going to try to eat this turkey, it's like full of seed oil. Like, there's just no way I could have done that. And and it was turkey. I mean, you can do a lot of things to turkey, but it's still at the end of the day turkey. So, but yeah, I was fine, and but I think it's important to have you have to have those people who understand what you're doing because, a lot of the family just doesn't understand. And some people are more or less supportive. I told you all that I was staying with my father, who's a vegetarian, and I brought my air fryer with me. And I'm so, so glad that I did that. That made things so much easier at his house because he really, I mean, I don't know when the last time meat was cooked in his kitchen. So, and I really, like I didn't want to be disrespectful or do much like that. So, so I was really glad that I did that, and that made things work a lot easier at his house. And and he didn't give me a hard time. So, yeah, so it was good. But for many of us, we don't have supportive families and friends, and so we need to have like communities to help us along. Okay. So, okay, so no more questions. Then I will wrap up, and I hope that this was helpful, and that you got something out of this, and you will be able to stick with your carnivore program and keep going and stay motivated and continue to motivate others to to eat this way. By your success. That's really the most evangelizing that you need to do. Just be successful, and people will want what you have and ask you how to get it. Hey, Sharika, it's great to see you. It's also been delightful in the challenge. I do these accountability calls, so I get to meet you all, and that's been really awesome too. Like I haven't had an opportunity to meet people who've been watching the channel for some time and who've been fans for some time. So thank you all to for your support. Thank you. I really appreciate all of you. Okay, so I am going to bring this to a close. And yes, GMO, thank you. Everybody like, subscribe, and click that little bell icon so you can get notification every time I go live. And follow me on Instagram at Black Carnivore. And I will see you all soon. All right, everybody, good night.